Did you know that just a simple little ritual before bed could actually help protect the clarity of your mind after age 60? Welcome to Best Senior Sleep. This is where we awaken peace and restore health, one deep sleep at a time. My dear friends, after age 60, quiet changes begin happening inside the brain, and many of us tend to miss the most important times to care for it. One of those times is the evening, right before we go to sleep. Your brain doesn't actually shut off when you sleep. In fact, that's when it starts working its very hardest. It's sorting memories, clearing out toxins, and repairing those nerve connections that got tired during the day. But here's the thing. Too many people go to bed without really preparing their brain at all. They turn off the lights, close their eyes, and think that's enough. But that very neglect, repeated night after night, can lead to feeling foggy the next morning. It can lead to being forgetful, having trouble focusing, and feeling like you never truly rested. So, in our time together today, I want to explore a gentle, simple evening ritual with you. It's something that has the power to nourish your memory and keep your mind clear naturally. No medications needed, no forcing anything. Just a little bit of mindful intention and a little bit of self-love before you drift off. Perhaps you already know that after age 60, many things begin to change in our bodies. But one of the quietest and easiest changes to overlook is our memory. You might not notice it right away. At first, it's just forgetting a name or starting a story and not quite remembering where you were going with it. But as time goes on, those gaps in memory can become more frequent. This can lead to confusion, worry, and sometimes a feeling of helplessness. The sad part is, most of us are taught to just accept this as a natural part of getting older. But the truth is not that simple. Memory isn't just something that falls away with the years. It's more like a garden. If it's cared for properly, it can still bloom, even in the later seasons of life. And one of the most important times to care for that garden is the evening. Maybe you've never thought about this before, but how you end your day directly affects how well your brain recovers during sleep. Over my more than 30 years working in gerontology and memory care, I've met so many older adults who came seeking help for cognitive issues. They would tell me similar things. I feel like my head is in a fog, they'd say, or I'm not as sharp as I used to be, or even I'm afraid I'm starting to lose my mind. I often started by asking a very simple question. What do you do in the hour before you go to bed? And the answer was almost always the same. Watching television, checking their phone, scrolling online, or simply lying down and hoping to fall asleep. That's a key point. Because sleep isn't just downtime for your body. It's when your brain does some of its most complex work. It's consolidating memories, filtering out toxins, repairing neural connections, and rebalancing your emotions. But for the brain to do all of that, it needs a ritual. It needs a series of gentle, consistent actions repeated every night. It's like sending a signal to the body that says, it's time to recover. Let me tell you about Helen. She was a 67-year-old woman who lived in Portland, Oregon. She came to see me looking quite bright, but her eyes held a hidden worry. She said, I'm starting to forget the names of my close friends. Not just strangers, but people I've known for 20, 30 years. When I asked her about her evening routine, she said she usually ate dinner quite early, around 5 o'clock, television. After that, she watched television, then went to bed around 10. She didn't eat anything after dinner. She didn't have any specific relaxation habits, and she often tossed and turned for nearly an hour before she could fall asleep. I didn't find her habits unusual at all. In fact, they were alarmingly common. So many people believe that simply not eating late and going to bed on time is enough. But they forget a crucial factor. The brain after age 60 doesn't work the same way it did when we were younger. As we age, the central nervous system becomes more sensitive. It's more easily affected by chemical stress. And it especially depends on feeling safe to enter that state of recovery. For Helen, We worked together to build a very simple ritual, but it was incredibly effective. First, we shifted her thinking about not eating anything after 6 p.m. Instead, I suggested she have a very light, easy to digest meal closer to bedtime. Something that still had enough protein and minerals, like a warm bowl of lentil soup or brown rice with steamed fish and vegetables. About an hour before bed, she would do a series of gentle movements, stretching her shoulders, neck, and hips. She did this in quietness, under soft, warm lighting. Afterward, she drank a cup of herbal tea, non-caffeinated, and wrote down 3 things she was grateful for that day. In just 3 weeks, she came back and told me, "I feel like my mind has brightened up again." And she wasn't the only one. A study published by the Stanford University Sleep Science Center showed that older adults with a consistent evening ritual not only slept deeper, but they also had better memory recall, even after age 5 You see, memory doesn't just live in the brain, it lives in rhythm. And that rhythm starts with how you end your day. As we step into our 60s and beyond, it's an undeniable truth that our brains also begin to change. It's not a sudden or obvious change that everyone notices right away. It's more of a quiet decline, little by little, maybe forgetting someone's name or walking into a room and not remembering why you went there. These little things, if they happen repeatedly, can make many people feel insecure. They worry that their memory is slowly leaving them. But what I want to share here is this. Memory doesn't simply disappear because of age. It declines when we don't know how to nourish and protect the brain at the right time. And that's especially true in the evening. Do you know that nighttime is when the brain works hardest to repair and restructure itself? When the body rests, the brain begins a complex journey. It filters through the day's memories, removes toxins, sorts what's important, and strengthens neural connections. But for this process to happen fully, the brain needs to be prepared. Just like a machine needs fuel to run, the brain needs clear signals and the right nourishment to enter that recovery phase. Sadly, most of us don't prepare at all. Many older people think that just going to bed early is enough. But no, sleep isn't like flipping a light switch. It's a transition process. And if we don't take the right transition steps, our sleep won't be deep enough or restorative enough. The result is waking up the next morning with a foggy, sluggish mind and a feeling of tiredness that's hard to explain. In my years of work, I've seen hundreds of cases like this. But there is one story I will never forget. And I believe it will be the clearest proof of what I'm about to share. The story I want to tell you begins with Carol Jenkins, 72 years old, living in Oregon, USA. She was a woman who had been a primary school teacher for over 30 years. She had retired and lived alone after her husband passed away. She had a habit of walking every morning and reading in the afternoon. It seemed like a relatively healthy lifestyle. However, in the last few years, she started experiencing mild forgetfulness. At first, it was forgetting the way home from the familiar grocery store. Then, it was forgetting an appointment with her daughter. More seriously, she couldn't remember some important memories from her own life. While she was still clear in conversation, she started to feel afraid, not because of the forgetting itself, but because of the fear that she was beginning to lose herself. When she came to me for advice, the first thing she asked about wasn't medication. It was, what can I do to make this better without having to rely on pills every day? That was such a deeply human question. And it was the starting point for the journey of brain recovery from within that I want to share today. I began by helping her understand the connection between her evening and her memory. Many people think that the brain is active during the day and rests at night, but the reality is quite the opposite. While you sleep, the brain goes through cycles of slow waves. This is when new memories are transferred from short-term to long-term storage, a process called consolidation. But the conditions for this process to happen don't just appear naturally. It needs support from what you do, eat, and feel in the evening. In Carol's case, I found that her evenings were very routine but not helpful. She ate dinner at 5 p.m., often a cold salad and a slice of bread. After that, she watched the news until 10 p.m., then went to bed. Sometimes she even had a glass of wine to help her sleep. There was no transition ritual. There was no signal to tell the brain, it's time to relax, recover, and store what's important. So, instead of starting with medication, I worked with her to establish an evening ritual. It was a series of simple but intentional actions designed to create the ideal environment for the brain to enter deep recovery. We started with 3 steps: gentle movement, a light evening snack, and practicing gratitude. The first step was gentle movement before bed. Not intense exercise, not running or lifting weights, but light, smooth movements to send the signal that the day is coming to a close. For Carol, I suggested a simple sequence of body stretches: gentle shoulder circles, tilting the head side to side, bending forward slightly, slow hip rotations. Each movement was done in quietness, combined with steady, slow breathing. At first, she thought this was strange. I thought I just needed to sit down, she said. But after just 1 week, she started noticing that her evenings felt different. She no longer felt restless. Her mind wasn't racing even when she sat still. Her body settled down, and sleep came more naturally. Next was the light snack before bed. This is a step many older people misunderstand. In Western culture, the common idea is you shouldn't eat after 6 p.m., but that's only true if you eat a large, heavy meal. For older adults, especially those showing signs of memory decline, a light, warm, balanced snack with protein and minerals can actually be a precious medicine. I guided Carol. Instead of a cold salad, she should try a warm bowl of miso soup with a few pieces of soft tofu, or a soft boiled egg with steamed green vegetables. No sugar, no processed foods, no stimulants. This wasn't just food. It was a signal sent to the brain: you are cared for. You are safe to rest. After just 2 weeks, she texted me. I'm sleeping deeper, she said. And the strange thing is, I started remembering the name of an old friend I hadn't thought of in 5 years. This change didn't come from a pill. It came from consistency, patience, and being gentle with herself. The third step, and one that many people often skip, is practicing gratitude. Every night before bed, I suggested Carol write down 3 things she felt grateful for that day. At first, she was hesitant. I don't have anything special to write about, she said, but I told her it didn't have to be anything big. A warm cup of tea, the sound of a bird in the morning, or simply the feeling of her feet still steady on the wooden floor. These were all things worth remembering. Gratitude isn't just an emotion. It's a powerful biological tool. When you feel and express gratitude, your body releases serotonin. This is a brain chemical that supports feelings of relaxation. It also reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that is often the culprit interrupting deep sleep. Research from UC Davis has shown that people who practice gratitude regularly have better sleep, less depression, and even better memory. In Carol's case, after just 3 weeks, she began to feel a clear difference in her mind. She said, every evening I started looking back on my day not with sadness or disappointment, but with appreciation. And when I went to sleep feeling that way, my mind felt clearer in the morning. From that foundation, we expanded the evening ritual by adjusting the rhythm of light and sound in her home. Carol, like many older people, had the habit of watching television before bed. The breaking news, the noisy commercials, and the blue light from the screen stimulated her brain, and that extended the time she spent tossing and turning every night. I suggested she turn off all electronic devices at least 30 minutes before bed. Instead, she would light a warm yellow bedside lamp. She would play soft, instrumental music, and she would spend time reading a few pages of a paper book. Not a thrilling novel, but a gentle collection of poems or short stories. This change alone created a turning point. She called it her quiet moment, a time when everything slowed down and she could even hear the wind outside her window. A peaceful space became the launching pad for deep sleep. and for waking up with a mind that no longer felt sluggish. Besides the changes in environment and diet, there is one factor I always emphasize in any evening ritual: the circadian rhythm and consistency. The human body, and especially the brain, operates on natural cycles called circadian rhythms. These cycles don't just control wake-sleep times. They also affect hormones, alertness, memory, and even emotions. When we sleep and eat at regular times every day, the body receives clear signals that it's time to switch modes. For Carol, I suggested she set fixed times for each small activity in the evening. Gentle stretching at 8 p.m., a light snack at 8:30, writing 3 things she's grateful for at 9 p.m., and getting into bed by 9:30. These repeated time markers didn't just create a sense of safety. They were like scheduling the brain to prepare to enter that deep recovery state. This is more important than ever for people over 60. As the hormone melatonin decreases with age, deep sleep becomes rarer. But when we create a regular schedule, the body gradually starts producing those sleep-supporting chemicals again. It does this naturally and sustainably. Another aspect that cannot be ignored in the evening ritual is the role of neuronutrition. These are foods that can nourish the brain gently but powerfully during sleep. In Carol's case, I added foods to her evening snack that contain tryptophan, natural melatonin, and antioxidants. These are known for their ability to boost memory and improve sleep quality. For example, a small piece of steamed salmon, rich in omega-3s, which helps nourish brain connections. A small handful of walnuts, which provide natural melatonin. A warm glass of milk, containing tryptophan, which helps the body make chemicals that promote sleep. A few blueberries or dark grapes, rich in antioxidants, which help protect the brain against wear and tear. There is no magic food that can restore memory overnight. But when we regularly give our bodies these nutrients, they help rebuild the chemical foundation for the brain to recover, little by little, especially when combined with deep sleep and mental relaxation. After maintaining this routine and diet for 6 weeks, Carol told me she not only slept better, but also, I could remember her shopping list without writing it down like she used to. I never thought I'd feel so clear-headed again, she said. Everything feels sorted out in my head, gently, without trying so hard. In supporting hundreds of other older adults, I've realized there's a common mistake that prevents the brain from recovering properly each night. And that's the mental stress before bedtime. Many older people spend their evenings worrying about finances, about health, about children or grandchildren. Some try to finish up the day's tasks, like reading bad news, going over paperwork, or arguing with family members. These seemingly small actions actually push the brain into a defensive state. They produce cortisol, the stress hormone, which breaks the deep sleep cycle and disrupts the brain's ability to regenerate memory. That's why I suggested the final step in Carol's ritual was to say goodbye to the busy mind. Every evening, instead of letting her mind fill with random thoughts, she spent 5 minutes breathing deeply and silently, repeating a simple phrase: I have done enough. I am safe. I will rest. It sounds simple, but these gentle affirmations help the body activate the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the system responsible for relaxation, digestion, and recovery. After a few weeks, Carol herself shared that this made her feel like someone was holding my hand and leading me to sleep. No more restlessness or fear, just a feeling of safety, ease, and her mind gradually becoming sharper each morning. 8 weeks after starting the changes, Carol came back with a completely different look in her eyes. Her steps were steadier, her voice soft yet clear. And what was most remarkable, she was no longer afraid of those moments of memory lapse. I'm not saying I'm back to how I was at 40, she laughed. But I feel like my mind is a companion again. It's not being left behind in a chaotic mess of thoughts. I've seen this not just in Carol, but in dozens, even hundreds of other older adults. When they started treating sleep not like a task, but like a healing ritual, a journey to bring the brain back into its proper rhythm, recovery happened naturally and steadily. No sleeping pills needed, no expensive therapies, just a little soft light, a cup of herbal tea, a few slow movements, a positive affirmation, and most importantly, doing these things over and over again, every night. The brain doesn't need anything magical. It just needs safety, stability, and time. And if you are listening to this now, I want to tell you, your memory hasn't disappeared. It's just waiting to be reawakened. One night at a time, one breath at a time, through those simple, loving actions you offer to yourself. My dear friend, memory doesn't fade with age. It's simply forgotten when we stop caring for ourselves in the right way. If you have stayed with me until this very moment, then I believe you don't just want to sleep better. You are truly longing to find back that clarity, that alertness, and that sense of self-reliance in the precious years ahead. Don't wait until memories start to blur before you begin to change. Start tonight with a small ritual full of love just for yourself. Just a warm bowl of soup, a few slow movements, one deep breath, and 3 things you are grateful for today. Your brain will notice. It will respond. And night after night, your memory will be nourished again. Gently, but surely. Perhaps as you listen today, something resonated with you. Maybe you're wondering which step feels easiest to start with. Or perhaps you've felt those long nights and the sense of losing yourself. I am here to share more with you on this journey. If this path feels right for you, know that there is so much more we can explore together, all designed to help you sleep deeper, live more fully every single day. Wishing you a peaceful night. Starting tonight,